kind of grew up going to Sunday school. As often as circumstances allowed. We didn't necessarily attend every single Sunday, but we certainly did. So I kind of grew up going to church, and I made a commitment at 13. But when I did my compulsory military service at 18 and was totally out of circulation with anything church, I just kind of fell totally away. My father was a very aggressive alcoholic and very abusive. So it was physical abuse as well as verbal, emotional. I was always, from day one, the black sheep of the family. Some people say I was just a naughty little brat and therefore I deserved what I was getting. I got my first hiding at 3 months because every time my father picked me up I cried, and therefore he'd get frustrated, and so I got a spanking which escalated into full-blown violence. As I say, smack on the bum was one thing, but it later escalated to fists, whips, belts, anything. And as I say, some of them were, in my opinion, unprovoked. I got home from rugby one day, and as I came through the front door, it was one of the occasions my nose was broken. He just smashed his fist into my face. And I said, "What did I do?" And he said, "You didn't tidy up the garage." And I said, "I didn't know I had to." He said, I shouldn't have to tell you. You should know by now." And I was 13. So there was that, and there was things that I've been accused of that I didn't do. And I've done many things that I'm not proud of, and I put my hands up to them. But on this particular occasion, a button was missing from one of my shirts, and I went into my sister's bedroom where the sewing kit was, got the needle and thread and sewed the button back on. And as I took it back to put it in there, as I was coming out the room, he came down the passage and he wanted to know what I was doing in the girls' room, because there was 3 of them there. And I said, "I've put the needle back." "You haven't, you've been fiddling with your sisters." And I'm going, I was 14. I had no idea what he was talking about. And then the worst was the accusation that I wouldn't even trust you with a dog. I had no idea what he was talking about at the time. I do now. But as I say, that's the kind of verbal abuse that was coming with it. My nose has been broken 3 times. Various bones broken. I've had the sjambok across my face, which is a 6-foot-long whip made out of hippo skin. The Zulus use it for when they're going to war. It's a vicious implement. So I'm not just talking about the odd little beating. So yeah, the legacy was heavy. And when I fell away from the church at 18, I went totally off the rails. I got involved in quite heavy drinking, smoking, dope, grass, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. I met somebody when came out the army, about a year after I came out the army, and we eventually got married, and I stopped or slowed down with the drinking and dope smoking. But then we split up after about 2 years of marriage. And I now know a lot of the reasons we split up was because of the baggage I was carrying, and a lot of the unresolved issues from my childhood, from all the aggression. I moved from where I was back to Cape Town and got involved in another relationship, and that also broke up, and then depression set in more and more to the point where I was on the point of suicide. I wrote a few suicide notes and had a gun, which you're allowed to own in South Africa, allegedly for self-defense purposes, and I actually sat there with a gun in my mouth for a few minutes, contemplating pulling this trigger. The thoughts that went through my mind were, A, you're not going to be in heaven, B, your mother's going to be devastated, and C, it's going to make a mess of the room. But it was mainly the first one that triggered me to say, I need to speak to somebody. I located a former pastor that I knew from 10 years previously, phoned him. He wasn't able to see me straight away, but could see me a couple of days later, and went and prayed with him and made a recommitment. It's been a journey. It's not always been an easy journey, but it's certainly an exciting journey. And when I look back after this process of healing, then it's like, wow, God, you are so awesome. Even though I had two biological parents in the house, I felt like an orphan. And now I feel like a son and not just a servant who's crept into the kingdom of God by my fingernails. I feel worthy of being in the kingdom and being able to help others because of what I've been through, and just knowing I don't have to be a servant, I'm a son. It's awesome.